Okay, maybe I should start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third session of CDR Stage Towards COP31. I am Pınar Öncel, and I'm co-hosting today with my dear colleague Göker Avcı. Let's wait 1 or 2 more minutes for the room to fill up before we start officially. We are recording the webinar, right? It's already being recorded, yes.
Yes.
And we will share the link. We will upload it to our YouTube account, and we will share it with everyone who registers. So you will have access after the meeting to the webinar recording. Today, we will be talking about CDR agenda at COP31, priorities, strategy, and expectations as we get closer to the COP in Antalya. Scaling carbon dioxide removal requires clear regulatory frameworks and aligned international policies. In this session, we will look at how current policy mechanisms are evolving and define what a successful outcome at COP31 looks like for the global CDR agenda. I think there are some people who also joined the previous sessions of CDR Stage. We hosted Chris Neidel, the carbon removal lead at the Climate High Level Champions back in April at the opening session of CDR Stage. And then in May, we hosted Stacey Koch. And we had great feedback about both sessions. We also hosted Chris Neidel in Istanbul at the CDR Istanbul Happy Hour, which was great. It was so nice to meet people who are interested in CDR or even worked in CDR from Turkey. Great connections, lots of new ideas. So we hope all of you enjoy this webinar as much. And we will, of course, continue the monthly webinars about CDR, different aspects of CDR until October. Maybe I can give a little bit background about us. We met with Göker last year and immediately connected and became partners in crime, thanks to our deep interest in carbon dioxide removals. Both of us have been working around this area, and COP31 has been our main focus this year to support the CDR agenda at COP and also in Turkey and the wider region. We are organizing these event series, and we are also writing some articles at COP31 Turkey Brief. You can check the CDR Brief section for these articles. Maybe Göker, can you please share the link in the chat? So we have both beginner level, informative, and deep dive articles here. With the momentum of COP31 taking place in Turkey, we will also launch CDR Turkey soon, working for Turkey's potential and leadership for CDR in the wider region. So I think we are ready to start. So Göker, over to you.
Thanks, Pınar, and hello, everyone. I'm Göker Avcı. I've been working around carbon removal for the last 7 years. Chris, again, it's a pleasure to host you at the third edition of CDR Stage Towards COP31. And again, thanks a lot for accepting to join us today. It has been an intense week for many people working in climate as London Climate Week continues. Before we bring Chris in, just a little background about our title today. For the first time, CDR had an official representation at a COP last year in Belém. A negative emissions platform organized and hosted the CDR 30 Pavilion at Blue Zone. Since then, there have been new initiatives and regulatory changes for CDR. EU's carbon removal and carbon farming regulation included 3 separate CDR methods. The SBTi's version 2 recognized need for durable CDR after 2035 and how companies can handle CDR. And meanwhile, Turkey will soon activate its own ETS emission trading system, and together with CBAM and future changes in EU ETS, we will have more CDR in all these mechanisms. We will discuss what all these mean for CDR ahead of COP31. And CDR 2030 initiative was launched this month, focusing on near-term CDR targets in preparation to the longer-term targets to make the 2050 targets possible. CDR 2030 is a collaborative platform to remove 100 million tons of CO2 from the atmosphere by 2030 durably through novel methods and 3 gigaton through conventional nature-based solutions. All these will hopefully start to synergetically impact the CDR scene and, of course, what will happen at COP at the CDR Pavilion this year. Pınar and I are members in the COP31 steering committee of negative emissions platform. Today, we will try to understand what will CDR look like during and after COP31, ideally and realistically. We are really excited about today's guest. Once again, welcome, Chris. We are both so happy to host you in this conversation. I really see Chris as one of the strongest role models in the CDR space. His work, clarity, and leadership have shaped many of us in how we think about the role of carbon removal in climate policy. Before we start our conversation, we have a quick poll to see who is in the room. Pınar, could you please activate the first poll?
Sure. Just a second. Yes. It's a little bit slow. Maybe you can start reading the questions. So this is the first poll. Yes, I'm activating it.
Yeah, perfect. What's your level of involvement? What's the level of involvement with carbon dioxide removal in your work and your organization? We're really curious to see the result of the first question. I think after we complete all 3 questions, we will see the results. Sorry for my mistake. You can switch between the questions by clicking the right direction. Second question is, why are you joining this session? Just to understand who are with us today. And third question is, which sector are you representing? Don't forget to click submit. So
okay,
I see.
Yeah, after submitting, I think people can start seeing the results, the collective results.
Yes, the first question, the average is 4.2, which is higher than we expected, more than the average. So it's good to see. And second question is 44% of the people are here because of their COP31 interest. And which sector are you representing? Is led by 50% CDR sector and 25% finance. So I think we are done with the poll.
Yeah, and some research, academia and sustainable consultancy is here with us as well. So, okay.
So Chris, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure people around CDR knows you very well already, but our audience is very diverse today. It would be great if you could briefly introduce yourself to the audience. We would like to first hear a bit about you, of course, and NEP, your work about CDR, and then your insights about the state of CDR towards COP. And then a couple of more things. How was CDR Pavilion at COP30, the outcomes, the impact in the wider climate agenda, the discussions took place, the outreach, etc., however you want. And we would, of course, like to hear the updates about policies in CRCF and maybe ETS integration. And lastly, what success looks like for COP31 and expectations of NEP and the whole sector. Over to you, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Gökhan and Pınar, for inviting me to address this group. It's really a privilege. And I want to start off by saying that you're being very generous about the role of the negative emissions platform in the COP30 and COP31 project. This is a project that we kind of drove, but it certainly doesn't. It's not a negative emissions platform project. It's a project from the entire CDR community, and everyone is welcome to participate as equals. So I urge you to think of it as something that we facilitated rather than something that we owned. Yes, so I am the Secretary General of the Negative Emissions Platform, which is a Brussels-based industry association for permanent carbon removals. Most of our members are carbon removal suppliers. Some of them are buyers, such as Microsoft and Stripe and NextGen. And then we also have quite a few companies which are part of the broader ecosystem, such as marketplaces, consultancies, specialized VCs, etc. Our work is focused primarily on policy advocacy, and most of that is the European Union. because the EU is a big market, because its rules are copied elsewhere in the world quite often, and because it's one of the early regulators in the world. So that's what we're focused on. And you gave me a long list of other things to talk about. So I'll try and go through them quickly. I think that this year, 2026, is actually going to be a really critical year for us because we are seeing two different legislative processes which will be launched in Brussels for the European Union. The first, which you've mentioned, is the integration of carbon dioxide removals into the EU's ETS. And that is regarded in the sector as a potentially massive source of new demand for carbon dioxide removals, and the first really significant compliance instrument or compliance market creator, which will change the nature of how carbon removals works commercially today, because today, as you know, it's overwhelmingly a voluntary market. The second piece of legislation will be proposed towards the end of the year, and that will involve targets for the member states of the European Union. And so depending on how that proposal goes, it might be as large as or even larger than the ETS proposal in terms of its impact on demand. Of course, its impact then would be much more distributed across different countries and much more variable and depend a lot then on the national governments. Both of those processes will start this year. They will probably last 18 months. That's the typical timeline for EU legislation. And so we will see the results of those, or the final text will be adopted probably towards the end of 2027 and into early 2028 for the member state proposals, or mid 2028 for the member state target proposals. That will really transform the way that carbon removals operates if those pieces of legislation are successful. But those will be big political fights, and there's a lot of work for us to be doing on those. You also asked me to talk about COP30 and what we did last year. And really, I think what happened was that a group of carbon removal people got together at COP29 in Baku and said, well, we really ought to do something much more impressive and organized and make a bigger impact as a community at COP, because COP carries on and no one is talking about carbon dioxide removals, or very few. So what can we do to raise the profile of carbon removals at COP? And someone had the idea of creating a pavilion for CDR. And so we ran with this idea, and the community managed to put together a small but beautiful little pavilion in the Blue Zone in Belém. And we managed to have quite a lot of programming at the pavilion over the course of the 2 weeks. I think there were three big takeaways or three big benefits of having that pavilion at COP30. First of all, it enabled us to double the amount of programming about carbon removals at COP in the Blue Zone. So we counted the number of sessions that had CDR as their topic all through the Blue Zone through the 2 weeks, and it would have been about half as much if we had not had our pavilion. So that's one thing to say. Secondly, it was a base for the carbon dioxide removal community. So people came, they dropped their backpacks and their laptops, and they used it as a place to go and radiate from, and also as a place then to meet and connect with each other. And then thirdly, it was also a place that we were able to use to generate outreach opportunities to other parts of the community that was present at COP. You were able to say, I will see you at the carbon dioxide removals pavilion. Let's meet there. Or you ran into someone who was there, who saw the branding, who saw the great graphics on the walls demonstrating technologies, and thought this was interesting. And then it was an opportunity to engage with passers-by. So the traffic and footfall effect of that pavilion was significant as well. And that's what we would like to do again this year. So a similar thing, have a pavilion, hopefully bigger and more beautiful and therefore more attractive, able to produce more high quality programming, but also to serve again as the hub for the carbon dioxide removal community at COP. And this year, there's going to be, however, a new innovation, which we are going to see if it works or not. And that is that the community is trying to develop a policy agenda, a common policy agenda. And at the highest level, I think we're going to try to achieve three things, or at least some of the following three things. So the first is to have CDR be referenced explicitly in writing in the final declaration of COP. That would be a really transformative thing because it's never happened before, and it would be a great way to start to put CDR on the agenda at the international and also the national level. The second thing would be to get the action agenda, which is a whole list of different actions that that COP has agreed should take place, to get as many of those actions to reference CDR in terms of their, in their work programs as possible. And then the third would be to really get agreement that carbon removals should go into NDCs, into the nationally determined contributions. So we'll see if we're successful or not, but that would be a new thing for this community to be doing. I think I'll pause there.
Thank you, Chris. Actually, it resonates to me that most of the things you defined what success looks like for COP31 will also somehow serve to the best benefits of Turkey. And therefore, this year the pace is really intense, and it's so exciting for us, the CDR professionals, of course. And we are really thrilled to work with you and other members of NEP for the CDR Pavilion at COP31. We are also doing our best to bring it to the attention of businesses here, policymakers, and the wider climate circles in Turkey. At this point, I would like to ask, how can we make CDR a better understood topic, attract more interest to it, and more people among policymakers, industries, and so climate circles can start talking about it?
Yeah, I think that Turkey has an amazing amount of potential in carbon dioxide removals, and one way to raise its profile in Turkey is actually to explain that to as many people as possible. So it's difficult because carbon removals, as you know, is very diverse. It's a lot of different things, and therefore explaining it to people is complicated. It's very easy to explain CCS, right? You put a filter on a chimney which is emitting carbon dioxide, and you clean the carbon dioxide out of the emissions that go into the air. That's the same thing whether you're putting it on a steel plant or a cement plant or any other kind of industrial installation. But when you talk about carbon removals, it could be CCS, or it could be one of 30, 40, 50 other technological approaches and I'm just talking here about the permanent carbon removals, of course, then there's the nature-based carbon removals as well. So the diversity is a challenge because it makes it harder to explain to people what you can do. It's also, however, probably the greatest strength and opportunity that we have, and it's the same in Turkey as anywhere else, which is that Turkey is a very large country with a large coastline, with huge natural resources, lots of biomass, and a very broad industrial base, lots of construction, mining, and other kinds of industries. And whether it's wastewater or municipal waste management, construction, mining, food, energy, agriculture, steel, metallurgy, lime, and a number of other industries that I'm not listing here, all of these industries have opportunities to actually integrate carbon dioxide removals into their operations and potentially not just reduce their own carbon footprints, but actually generate revenues from selling carbon dioxide removals on voluntary markets or compliance markets in the future. So it's a really huge opportunity for a very broad swath of different industries. And I think that would be one way of making it more understood in Turkey is to get alongside those industries and individually explain to them how carbon removals might integrate into their industry and to the operations of the companies there, and then have them be allies in taking that story to government, so that carbon dioxide removals is no longer a climate policy issue, but becomes a matter of industrial policy.
Thank you so much, Chris. I was just going to talk about the potential in Turkey. So that was great that you talked about it. Because our regional perspective this year, because both Göker and I are from Turkey, is quite strong, because of course we are working around CDR and we want to bring it to the attention of businesses and policymakers in Turkey, and also the climate circles as well, because really people working in climate, they don't really know much about CDR as well. So this has been our work, and we are quite happy because COP is happening in Turkey, and this is an advantage for us to bring the CDR more into the Turkish agenda. But we are going to have another session in next month in July. It's also from a regional perspective, titled Scaling CDR Through Policy, Lessons for Turkey and the Wider Region. And also in September, we are also going to host a more regional perspective webinar. Maybe we can going to manage to have it face-to-face event, as we originally thought with you actually in June, but that was too short notice. So and sponsorship was quite challenging. So for those who are interested in, please stay tuned and follow the announcements for these next events around Turkey and the region. So when we say Turkey and wider region, there's a reason behind that, because Mediterranean region, as we all know, is already being affected from climate change more than many other parts of the world. And we don't have CDR much here in the Mediterranean region, and also Middle East and Central Asia. So Turkey is part of a wider geography that we think we can lead in CDR. Of course, we have a lot of potential in, for example, biochar, as you mentioned, because we have a lot of biomass. We are a big agricultural country, and we also have mineralization pathways such as enhanced rock weathering. And we have, I was really surprised to see that we have suitable geological formations for in situ mineral carbonation. That was also quite surprising for me, and also, of course, the sectors like cement and mining. So it's a great untapped potential, and people are not aware that CDR is a big future sector. It's going to be huge. It's really very nascent right now in this region, in this part of the world, also globally, but more so here. Adding these potentials, and also Turkey has a strategic gives strategic importance to zero waste and industrial decarbonization, and CDR technologies can serve all these priorities very well. So this is something that we think it's quite exciting, and we will do our best to bring these perspectives towards and during COP as well. I don't know if you have anything to add for these, the regional perspective. Something more comes up to your mind?
Sure. So I think, one thing that immediately comes to mind when you talk about the Mediterranean is, of course, the sea, and the fact that the sea, that sea has always connected the lands around it. And that's why you had, the Roman Empire and the other, the Turkish Empire and other empires, the Ottoman Empire, that have existed around the Mediterranean, is because that sea serves as a route for quick transportation. And if you think about a CO2, of course, there will be opportunities to store CO2 under the Mediterranean Sea, and also to store it onshore. And that link that's created by the Mediterranean Sea will enable CO2 to be transported and stored very quickly and efficiently. If you think about the North Sea, which is where a lot of the storage is being developed today, the capacity might be very large, but it's only very accessible for a small corner of northwestern Europe, whereas potentially the Mediterranean is accessible to a far larger group of countries and more people. So I think that's something to think about. But also, I think you asked about what we can do to raise the profile and where the opportunities are. I think one of our problems is that media coverage of carbon removals is quite low, and so we should all be thinking about how to engage the media. And I think, again, coming back to the diversity of the sector, that's really important, because you can interest journalists in all kinds of different things, and hopefully the more pathways that you find to integrate carbon removals into an industry or an activity, the more journalists you can interest in this and raise the profile with. Again, you mentioned the zero waste logic which is so popular in Turkey, and as you said, carbon dioxide removal itself is waste management, because you're removing a waste product which is in the atmosphere. But more than that, you can integrate CDR into physical waste management activities, such as wastewater treatment, municipal waste management of physical waste, where you can burn the biomass that you get from homes and businesses and collect the CO2 from there. And waste construction materials, of which there are lots in Turkey. So lots of different opportunities around waste management as well. But yeah, I think the whole Mediterranean region has immense opportunities for CDR. And as you say, it's so nascent and small today that the growth, the investment opportunity is absolutely massive.
It's really great. Sorry, Pınar.
I was just going to say just one more thing. Like this is such an exciting topic, because there's so many areas like technological and other areas of innovation. And this is so exciting. The impact that we can create through removals is just enormous. Like we are so excited. I mean, this is one of the topics in my sustainability work throughout almost 20 years. Is the one that I feel most really excited. This is really such an interesting area. It has lots of background for science and collaboration and everything. So I think, and we have so much to learn from you, actually, because like we have no idea about what policies or regulations can help Turkey, or a country which doesn't already have anything about it yet. So hopefully we're going to see some collaboration with you. Thank you so much. Sorry, Gökhan.
Also, thanks for the wrapping up, Pınar. I also agree that especially the Mediterranean part is a heaven in terms of organic waste. Therefore, I think, Pınar, we can say our much bigger priority and the biggest potential we see is mostly on the biochar side. We did not come to BECCS yet, but there is also another potential in there. But I think we are already going to be planning another webinar, which will probably concentrate on those specific methods. We will move into Q&A now. Everyone, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. We will choose one or two accordingly with the time left to stay within time, and to make the most of having Chris with us. Chris, while waiting for people to submit their questions, would you like to also talk a little bit about how was the Negative Emissions Summit on the 4th of June? As far as I know, it's the biggest carbon removal policy event in the world.
Yes, until now, it has been the biggest carbon removal policy event in the world. Our friends in other associations and NGOs who are in this space are also developing events that are on CDR policy, and I very much hope that what we did this year will look much smaller in a few years' time compared to what we do collectively in the future. So we had the 4th annual Negative Emissions Summit in Brussels. It's a policy-focused event that brought together people from the carbon dioxide removal community, but also people from associated industries, people from policy, from academia, government, and also from buyers of carbon removals. So it's quite a diverse crowd, and the idea is really to dive deep into the policies that are currently being debated in the European Union. So we talked in one session about national policies that can be deployed to stimulate CDR, whether that's financing or risk support or regulatory mandates, things like that. And then in the second session, we talked about the upcoming integration of CDR into the ETS. And in the third session, we talked about industrial integration. So this idea that CDR is not a separate thing which lives over there, but it's actually something which is part of the fabric of the economy and of the industrial landscape of an economy. So that's a really powerful idea. And then we had a fireside chat to finish with, which was with Oliver Gaden, who is a member of the IPCC and their 6th assessment report, one of the co-authors of that, and also a co-author of the State of CDR report, which I recommend you all take a look at as if you want to learn about where CDR is today and where it's going. It's a great resource to look at. And I think they've now published, 3 editions of that now.
I think over to you again.
So yes, thank you so much, Chris. And I'm just checking if anyone has some questions. I think we don't have any questions in the chat box. I'm not sure. Göker, can you check the Q&A box? Is there any questions?
I also can't see.
Okay, so maybe we can do our final poll. Sorry, there is just one from Akan Williams. Biochar production, are there global plans or frameworks available? A question.
So I'm not entirely sure what you mean by plans or frameworks. There's certainly a very well-developed ecosystem of biochar producers in the world, and there are organizations which are working on common standards so that the production of biochar can be as predictable as possible, and the quality standards can be set at a level where it gives the market confidence. So these are bodies like Biochar Europe, which is the one I'm most familiar with here. There's the International Biochar Institute, the IBI, and these bodies are doing really important work to standardize. Pinar and Göker, you're probably more educated on biochar than I am. I would say that in general, when you look at the growth curve that is needed for us to reach the target that the IPCC set for global volumes of carbon dioxide removals by 2050, when you look at that curve and the speed at which we have to grow, the early part of that curve is going to have to be quite heavily reliant on biochar, because biochar is an extremely mature technology which has been around for many, many centuries, and where we are pretty certain of the impact that it has on climate. So there isn't much debate around the science, and it's got benefits to agriculture if you spread it on fields, for example. So it's well understood, it's quite mature, and it's something that we can ramp up quickly at a very early stage. A lot of the other carbon dioxide removal technologies are much less mature. Some of them are entirely experimental. Of course, many of them are well beyond experimentation stage. But biochar will do a lot of that early building of volumes. And of course, then as biomass becomes more and more under pressure in terms of availability, then other methods will have to take over. And I think in the very long term, I think we're looking at oceans being the main reservoir of carbon that we eventually capture. But biochar will be a really early player. So that's I think the quickest opportunity to invest in CDR in a way that will give quick returns. But over to you, Pinar and Göker.
Maybe I can say that, like, when we it's just like CDR. When we say CDR, there are many different types of technologies, and when we mean biochar, there are many different types of inputs. Like, we can use agricultural waste, we can use municipal sewage sludge, everything, like any kind of biomass could and therefore the pyrolysis technology could be different, like it could require different aspects with each, and the product of biochar product could be different in all different kinds of inputs and processes. So when we say biochar, we mean a lot of things, and there are some standards with biochar in bigger plants, and then there are, like, more smaller distributed mobile ways of producing biochar, which, for example, like a distributed system will be very, very practical in countries like Turkey. We have a big, huge agricultural activities, but we don't have huge agricultural areas like US has, for example. We have smaller farming communities, so a distributed system could be more relevant here. So, like, yes, there are many different kinds of frameworks. It's still being developed for these different types of biochar. For example, most of the standards are looking at how biochar is used in agriculture. But for example, we know that biochar can be used instead of clinker or sand in cement and concrete applications. And I think we don't have yet any standard for these applications. So it's that part is the frameworks are still being developed. I think that I can say.
So shall we move to the final poll?
Yes. So
Okay, then I'm launching it.
Perfect. And thank you, Akan, for the question. And yes, we would like to stay connected as well. And here is the poll. It may come quite slow on your screen, but let me read the questions. After today's session, there's a question with choices. So A, I will introduce key takeaways to my colleagues or team. I want to explore how CDR fits into net zero or emissions or climate strategy. I am more interested in CDR policies and advocacy. I'm curious and ready to attend events at the CDR Pavilion at COP31. So this is the first question. Chris, can you have access to it? I think you couldn't access the poll.
No, when I click on the button that says view poll in the chat, it says this feature isn't available in your version of Teams. We're working on it. So okay. I think it's probably a software issue on my side.
Okay. So let's submit and see the results. Yeah, well, that's great. Many people are curious and ready to attend events at the CDR Pavilion. That's great. And many people are interested more in CDR policies, I guess, and also explore how CDR fits into their work and strategies, climate strategies. Oh, sorry, I think I closed it. Can we open that, reopen the results?
I can see, I can continue if you can.
Okay. I just want to, yeah.
For the second question, what is your level of interest in CDR in the light of this conversation? Again, the average is 4.2, just like the first poll question. So I think this was enlightening for most of us who joined. And the last question, do you think you or your organization will be involved in CDR towards, during, or after COP31? 80% says yes, 20% says not sure.
Well, that's great. I think we are quite good with timing. I really like the replies, and it's really great to see the momentum, especially in our region. Like we already know how like the global CDR community is full of momentum this year, but it's great to see the interest, at least in Turkey. Like we have both Göker and I, we have networks around sustainability circles, climate change, and some businesses as well. And we see especially some interest from the sustainability consultancies. It's just becoming going into their area of work, like interest, area of interest. So it's great. Thank you all for joining us today. I think the attendance, like we normally host these events on Wednesdays or Thursdays because of the better attendance, but today was booked much earlier on a Friday because we were thinking to host it a face-to-face event. So I think we have less attendance than we expected, but because it's going to be on YouTube in our CDR Turkey channel, it's going to be accessible. We are going to share it with everyone who registered. So this has been a great session. Thank you, Chris, so much. Really enlightening, and we really love your work. And of course, the negative emissions platform is so precious that you are working on the policy side. Before we close, would you like to share a final takeaway for the audience, or like a message you would like to you would want people to leave with today?
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me, for this opportunity. I always like to remind people that CDR is special because it's not just about damage limitation. It's actually about hope that we can fix the climate in the longer term. And of course, it has a role in damage limitation and reducing emissions, but ultimately we could use CDR if we get to net zero. We could use CDR to go beyond and make the world better than it is today rather than less worse. So I love the hope aspect of CDR, and I hope that, and I think we need that as a society. And I think CDR has a great place in that kind of global, social, psychological landscape, which is so important because climate fatigue is real, and CDR can help fix that.
That was an impressive finishing. It's always pleasure to know you, always pleasure to speak with you, and it was an honor to host you today. And thank you everyone for joining. We will be sharing the recording and materials with everyone who registered. Please stay connected through COP31 Turkey Brief channels for the next CDR stage sessions, and follow us on fresh CDR Turkey accounts in YouTube or LinkedIn.